and cut drastically. And my next guest understands if the establishment Republicans don't demand serious, deep cuts to the budget, they're going to face the ire of cut-hungry Tea Partiers back home. They may even be targeted in the next election. Here now with this dire warning, Utah Republican Congressman Jason Chaffetz. Congressman Chaffetz, even when we discuss bad news, it's a pleasure. Welcome back to Freedom Watch.
Hey, thanks,
I don't know
Jeff.
if you heard our interview just a few seconds ago with Senator Rand Paul, but he informs me that if this deal that's been floating around Congress that Senator Schumer of New York says might be in the works, which cuts the president's budget by $33 billion, comes to pass, they will still have to borrow another $1 trillion between now and the end of this year. I mean, are they trying to fool us with the amount of money that they're borrowing? Are they not even laying out on the table how bad this is at the same time they're claiming they're actually cutting?
Well, I think we do all understand how bad it is. I hope we all have internalized that. If it's a $33 billion cut, that is a paltry amount, something I could not support, not nearly enough to put us on a trajectory that we need to go in this country. And I think you'll have a lot of fiscal conservatives shy away and vote no on any sort of, agreement, if you can even go as far as calling it an agreement. Guys like me just can't support that.
You have not hesitated to touch the third rail, the present third rail, as we call it here in New York, the rail from which the power comes on the subway. And that is the division between the small government folks like you and many of your colleagues in the House and the old guard Republican leadership. What will happen to the old guard Republican leadership if they cut a deal with the White House, if they cut a deal with the Democrats in the Senate, if they cut a deal with the blue dog Democrats in the House, and reject the virtues of the Tea Party and sound money and small government that you stand for?
No, I think the countryside will come unglued because we signed a pledge. We committed to a pledge to America that said we were going to cut at least $100 billion. That, to me, is the bare minimum. We need to go above and beyond that. So to suggest that that number is going to be somehow cut in half and we've got to go out and appease blue dogs, no, that's not. No, we actually have to do what's right for this country. We do what's right for this country, then we'll be on the right track and good things will happen. But stop looking at it through a political lens and start looking through the economic reality. I think that's where the Tea Party's at. I think that's what they're demanding. I think that's what the country's demanding. And that's what I'm committed to doing.
I want you to speak to Senator Chuck Schumer as if he were right here sitting next to me in the studio, because he said two things in the past 2 days. One is the Tea Partiers are extreme and they're extremists. And I'm going to use those words or a form of that word every time I refer to him. The other is we'd have a budget if John Boehner just stopped paying attention to those characters in the Tea Party. What would you say to the good senior senator from New York if he were right here with you and me and the people watching us now?
Well, I'd say, Senator, under your leadership over the last 48 months, we went from $8.67 trillion to over $14 trillion. You increased the debt by nearly 60%. We're paying more than $600 million a day on the way to more than $1 billion a day. We can no longer afford to be all things to all people. And 25% of GDP, that is 25 cents out of every dollar spent in this country being spent by the government, is just fundamentally and totally wrong. We need to change the direction that we're going in this country. Government has a proper role, but it's a limited role, and we're going to have to change that direction. Not $1 or $2 or $3 billion at a time, but by the hundreds of billions.
Just last question. We only have about 30 seconds. Are there enough Republicans in the House who agree with your passionate, eloquent commentary to stop the Republican leadership from cutting a deal with paltry results with the Democrats?
I hope so. I'm an eternal optimist, Judge, but I worry. I don't know that I could say that definitively. I think it's a very mixed bag. I think we still have a limited group of fiscal conservatives in the House. I just think that's the reality based on the voting records that I've seen thus far. I wish I could be more definitive and say, yes, absolutely, but right. I don't know. I don't know.
All right. Well, we'll have you back next week as these votes are being counted. Congressman Jason Chaffetz from Utah, thank you for joining us. If we arm the rebels in Libya, are we arming the same group behind 9/11? That shocking story. Only here next.
You can now join Judge Napolitano live at Fox Business.